You should have Xcode in your dock, and you can start to program. The program you use is underneath applications. Sorry. Somebody wants me to buy solar panels. That's what it was, probably, huh? We use a program called Xcode. It's at the bottom. Why don't you drag that to your dock? No, don't open it. Well, too late now.
Yeah, I see like this.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, that's what we're doing. You should sit on that side over there as well, so that you can look up here on the screen for a moment. I put the book on this side and I put the programming on that side over there, okay? So when you come in next class, go over there. Okay, again, I'm going to follow the book here. Again, Interface Builder Basics. Xcode is a built-in tool called Interface Builder that makes it easy for you to create interfaces visually. In this lesson, you learn how to navigate through Interface Builder and add elements to the canvas and interact with those elements in code. So last class, we kind of ended with that ability there. So to start with, I'm going to turn the page here. Best way to learn basic interface builders is dive right into Xcode. Interface Builder always opens with you select an XIB file or a storyboard file. So let's start by just saying under File, you could say New Project here. Right there, New Project. I think I talked about the difference here. Last class I went through some of these different ones. I'm going to use the single view app. And I'm going to say next. I'm going to give it a name. This would just be a sample. I'm just going to call it sample. So give it a name, sample. We're using Swift programming as the language. And I'm going to say next. Next is going to ask you where to put it. If you remember last class, I actually made a folder in the Documents window to put my apps. If you haven't done that yet, you can go to Documents here. You can make a folder with your name on it where it says New Folder. Put your name on it, and then say Create inside there. Turn off the Git repository here. I turned that off. I remember we talked about that last class. Again, the first one it comes up to when you first start this program is this general window here. And you'll notice that this highlight the file that's at the very upper left corner, the top file right here. You'll notice these are all the files that are underneath it. You have Swift programming. The Apple Delegate Swift programming is the overall Swift for the whole file, for all of them. The ViewController is for the storyboard. Assets is the store. Launch screen storyboard is going to be for where you're preparing content. One of the things to keep in mind is that the program works by kind of almost like web programming, where you can have things start before the screen is loaded, and you can have things start after the screen is loaded, and so on. The next thing you can do is, if you remember last class, I kind of talked about devices. I tend not to use Universal, and I like to use iPhone or iPad. I don't like to use Universal. And so when I'm done setting all those up, if you look here, and I can't zoom in here, but the most important one that you build on is something called the storyboard, and that's what they want you to go to right here where it says storyboard right there. And the storyboard is, like you said, it's a visual representation. That's why they call it Interface Builder. It's a visual representation of the actual interface of a phone. An XIB file contains a user interface for a single visual element, such as a full screen view, a table view, cell, a custom view. XIBs were used more heavily before the introduction of storyboards. They are still a useful format in certain situations, but this lesson will focus on storyboards. In contrast with the XIB, a storyboard file includes many pieces of the interface defined, the layout of one or more screens, as well as a progression from one screen to the other. As a developer, you'll find the ability to see multiple screens at once will help you understand the flow. Again, at the top of this right here, they talk about the zooming factor. There's a zoom option. I know you can't see it. Let me move my screen a little bit here. There we go. Can you see it now? There we go. You'll notice there is a plus and a minus. Oh no, I lost it, didn't I? I might have to make it. What happened to my plus and?
It just gets to be wider. Just if you pull it down a little bit more, then you can. No, I'm going to drag the corner. Yeah, now you can.
Yeah, now you guys can't see it, but whatever. You get the idea. There's a plus and minus down there. Again, minus zooms out, plus is. And one of the biggest challenges you'll run into is if you're an Adobe user, right? In Photoshop, I'm using Command plus to zoom in, Command minus. And I constantly do that because I'm so used to doing it. That doesn't work here. I don't know what the command keys are for this. The other thing you'll notice down here is what kind of phone are you targeting right here. You can see there's different phones and there's different orientations down here. You can choose landscape or portrait. You can see that as you're building it. Do you notice down there? Then you can choose your devices right here. Right now I just have iPhone 8 because that's what I chose. Again, down here you might need to make it a little bigger. Whoosh. Then you can choose different options here. See all the different phones that you can choose down here? See them all? They're kind of towards the bottom down there. So just click around down here and you can see the different options. Okay. I don't want that one. Which one was I using? 8. I like just using 8 and in landscape in portrait mode. Uh-oh. Maybe crash my system here. Doesn't like my orientation here. Uh-oh. Not good. There we go. Okay, so I'm just going to go back to 8, but you could just see the option down there. I did talk about the main interface. Built and run the project simulator displays the same screen that you saw on the storyboard. You can change the initial visual point to very gray arrow to the left to desired. Let's move on there. Interface builder to the left of the main canvas in the document overview to reveal and click the show document button. So again, this one is kind of like the flow right here. If you don't see this one, you can I don't know if I could bring this up, or you can see there's this one right here. This one is kind of the view, and we're going to be using this a lot over here for controlling how you see the window, because every object you put on the screen will actually be over here as well. So it's almost like layers. You guys use Photoshop, right? In Photoshop you have layers right here. This is like layers in Photoshop. This is the layer window. This is the layer window in Photoshop right here. Okay. Other thing you'll notice is an arrow right here. What does that arrow represent? It says this is the first thing that plays. Okay, that's what this arrow is representing. In addition, you have safe area and view area. Safe area, view area. What is safe area? Well, you'll notice like on your phone, you have your battery and your power and your cell phone signal stuff up here. So you usually don't put stuff behind that. That's why it's called safe area. Okay. Let's move on. Let's talk about other objects. Last class we started putting objects on the screen. So again, if you're new to this version here, how did I get my objects up on the screen? Usually they're down here. Yeah. Oh, this one right here. I'm so sorry. Yes, I'm getting used to this newer version myself. So up here you'll see it says library right here. This is where we can put all the objects on. So let's just put some on. We're gonna they have labels, they got buttons, they have objects. So let's just go through again. In the reading they go through some of them. Again, a button is one that you can actually add programming to. A label is something that you can just put in. So let's put a label on. So if I click up here where this little plus is, see my cursor flashing up here. If I click up there, we can then go and type in label. L-A-B-E-L, and I can drag a label out. So this would be text like at the top of your screen. So let's say you're making an app and you need a title of your app. You can type in label up here and you can drag the label out. Okay, and I'm going to zoom in so I can see it here. And they tell you in the reading to take the label and put it up in the upper left corner. So if I drag it over here, notice how these little blue lines show up. What are these blue lines? Well, some of us, so again, you got a label, drag it just by clicking and drag it to the upper left corner. You'll see these blue lines. Well, the first top line, of course, was the safe area, right? Remember, you don't want to put something above the where the cell phone stuff is and the date and stuff like that. But what is the one on the left side? Well, just like in web programming, what is around the edges of the web page?
Border.
Margin. Okay, so just like you have margins in a web browser, there's a default margin here. Now you don't have to, you can blow that off, you can put your stuff all the way to the edge if you want, but again, they're just telling you, hey, you're getting close to the edge, just like you do in web programming, right? So when you're dragging it around, you'll see that you have those little blue lines over there, and they will help you see what is happening. Okay? So again, here it is. That's what they talk about in the book right here. Okay, let's change our font and size and so on. So with a label, I can double click on it and change the name. Let's put our name on it. I'm going to put my name on there. Notice how it starts typing from the left to the right, right? Watch what happens when I deselect and I click outside. Okay, it makes the box the size of your text. You see that? If you want to change the actual font and all that, you're going to go and select your text and go to this option right here. Oh no, this option, attributes right here, this option. What does this option do? Well, you can change the type of text you want. You got a system font here. Now the system font is a great font because it'll change sizes according to the actual system. You can make them bigger. See how I'm clicking system? Again, it's this one right here with the arrow pointing down. Show attributes. Show attributes. You can do left align, center align, right align, justified, or this one right here, which is default. You could say multiple lines. Maybe it's a multiple lines of text. And that gets kind of tricky here when we get to doing multiple lines of text. You could change the color of the text as well. And alpha would be a transparency. Background color, default is blue. These are when you touch it and so on. This is the highlight color. What am I doing here? What is this? Compact. Where am I at? Lines. Is there a color here? Let me try color. No, that didn't change color, did it? That's a highlight color. Where's my color in my text? Which one? Oh, here we go. This color. Thank you. There we can change the color of our font right here. Here's the text. Notice how the text is inside here because you can program it, right? Because you're going to end up changing it a label. So a lot of times if you want to change text, it's not necessarily a button. It's going to be text that is a label, and then we can adjust it later. The size inspector allows you to adjust the size and position. That's this one right here. The size inspector is the one that's in the very upper right corner there. It looks like a little whatever, I'm not sure what it looks like, but you get the idea. The size inspector then shows you the position of the screen. Notice it'll give you X, Y coordinates. Do you see them? X, Y coordinates for the position. Okay, it gives you a height and width. You're going to need to specify those things so that the size of the text doesn't change. Next, they tell you to put a button on the screen. I don't know. I'm gonna go to the button. I don't know. They're giving you buttons here. Did we put a button on last time? Yeah. Okay, good. Okay. So let's put a button on. Again, I'm going to go over here to this option, this one right here, and let's put a button on. And let's put it on the screen, and let's put it in the center. And if you remember how to put it in the center, you can just drag it into the center right there. Okay, let's talk a little bit about button for a moment. The button is one that you can use by controlling the programming. And let's just look at some. So if you wanted to stay in the center, how did we do that last class? Do you remember? The constraint down here. Do you see the one toward the bottom? I don't know if you can see my cursor down there, but it's this one right here with the constraint, the alignment option there. You have constraint and alignment. So if we do alignment, it's easy to put it right in the center of everybody's phone by going to alignment and saying horizontal center, vertical center, and say add two constraints, and you'll notice it has the thing that goes across. Do you remember doing that last class? Okay, again, we can do that. Watch what happens if I move it away. Uh-oh, look, it turned orange. What is the orange telling me? Well, if you move it away from your constraint, it's going to tell you, hey, well, it's telling you it's off, but in runtime, when you go to play it, it's going to put it back in the center. It's telling you that you're off. You can visually move things around in here, but it's telling you you're off by 79.5 pixels. See that? So when you see orange, it's bad. How do I fix orange if I have orange and I don't know to put it back in the center? You can easily fix these very quickly by going to there's a couple ways. One way is to click on the orange itself, and let me see, there is a way to do it from clicking new reference outlet. Now that's changing it. How did I fix that? Well, whatever. A quick way of fixing it is to come down here and say reset to suggested constraints. No, that's not what I wanted. Hold on, I'm making a mistake. This is really, it's not the easiest thing to do here. What do we want? I want to clear constraints, update constraints, add missing constraints, reset suggested constraints, clear constraints. Reset. No, that's not what I want. There is a way to put it back.
Oh, reset to, yeah, reset.
There's a way to put it back.
I think if you say, yeah, reset to suggested constraint, it works.
No, it goes and puts it there. I don't know, I have to figure it out. Here, just keep in mind the orange is... Oh, shit. Sorry, my mouse is going nuts on me here. I know there's a way to put it back. I'm just going to drag it back. How about that for right now? Okay, let's talk about programming our button. Okay, let's talk about programming our button. So whenever you have a button on the screen, the button is actually called a UI button, or user interface button. If you notice over here, you'll see it right here. Do you see this little show identity right here in the upper corner? See in my upper right corner here? See in my I'm going to turn this on right here. See it in the upper corner right here? You'll notice where it says class. Do you see that class option right there? It's just the default class. I haven't assigned anything to it yet. Oh, don't click there. I know I have to go back. So it says UI button. Right now there's nothing underneath there. So when we go to start programming that, we're going to have to assign a value. You see the class option there? Right? So when we program our buttons, we can give them specific names, and then right there is where you would change the name. Do you see that option? So again, under that inspector, we can program the button, then we need to assign the programming to the button. That's where we do it. Just keep that in mind. We'll do that a lot right there.
So the class, you will choose the class name?
You can, yes.
But it shows the default.
The default is UI button, but in the future, let's say you have a whole bunch of buttons and they're doing different things. They all need to have different names, right? That's one way. Here's the biggest challenge you're going to run into is having the code up at the same time as the interface builder. And so I'm going to, because I have a big challenge because my screen is kind of messed up. So what I want to do is I want to have this view controller. So if you look right here, see how it says Swift, view controller Swift right here, and then main storyboard. You want to usually have these two together on the screen at the same time, because this is the programming that you're doing, and this is the visual storyboard that you're doing. So this is quite a challenge for me because I don't have a lot of room because of the projector, where you guys all have a lot more room. And I'm going to put my thing back up there to 8. To do that, you got this option right here. It's to show the assistant editor. Do you see the one that looks like looks like the Olympic symbol, right? With the circles going. Looks like an Olympic symbol in the upper right corner. Do you see that one? If you click on there, it'll open up the Swift file here and there. So why don't you try that? I'm going to change my windows a little bit so I can see them both. You don't have as much problem as I do, probably. Yeah. Where am I at here? I'd struggle because I don't have all the screen. But again, click right here where the thing is, and it should bring up both of them. Did it bring up both of them for you? You should have the programming on one side here, and then the interface builder there. Look at the one with the Olympic symbol. Do you see that one? Did you get it? No. This is the way we usually work in the program. There you go. That's what I meant. You need to move your windows around. You have the interface and you have the programming. This is the programming for this. Okay, so when you're looking at it, this is the most common way we'll be working in class. This is the most common way. You have the programming. Let's read the programming for a moment. We're going to read it. You learned a little programming today. Let's read it. Here we go. First thing you're going to see is import UI kit. That brings in the interface elements, right? We have a label, we have a button. So that tells the first line import. That's just give me the resources. Let's try and reread it a little bit. Hey, what are the resources that are built in? There's a button that's built in. There's a map. There's all kinds of things built in. Second one is class, ViewController. So it's going to treat this as an object here that we can do things with. And it's going to call it a UIButton, and it's going to have some values to it that you can do. The first one is, did it load? Okay, so you can, I think I was saying, it's kind of like web programming. You ever do a web program where you can program the graphics to be on the screen before the page is displayed? You ever do that? You do that in web programming. And you can, preload elements and so on. So this kind of, in this program, we can actually do things beforehand. You can say, hey, once it's loaded, this is what it looks like. Hey, if it's leaving, right? Let's say you're going from one screen to another, and you need to take a value from that screen and put it into the next screen. You can do that. You can assign the value before it leaves the screen to go to the next one, and then apply it to that one. There's all kinds of different options that you can do in here. So the first one says override function. View did load. Super view did load. Basically, it's saying, did it load? Okay, that's all it's saying. Did it start load? Did it load properly? Because if it didn't load, then there's an error. That's basically all it's telling you there. That's the default. So if you want to add some programming of this button, you use a drag and drop feature. What is the drag and drop feature? Well, the drag and drop feature is in that you drag it from one to the other. Now, it depends on where you drag it. Do you want to assign values before the screen is loaded? You're going to put it here, like 12. Look at number 12. Do you see it there? I want to assign a values before the screen is displayed. I can take, so let's say I want to adjust a value of this button before it's displayed. I'm going to hold down the control key and I'm going to click and drag right here into above where it says override, below where it says class view controller, UI view controller. I'm going to hold the control key down and I'm dragging with the left mouse to this area. I'm going to release my left mouse and it's going to ask me something. What is it asking me? Well, there's going to be two things you can do to this. Is it an outlet? Is it an action? Is it an outlet collection? What is the difference? Well, an outlet is where you can actually change the value. If I want to change the word button to something else, right? I want it to be Jeff. Okay, I can do that here. If I want the action where they actually going to click on something or touch it, it's going to be an action. So you have different options here. The outlet definition has multiple parts. Here's what you're seeing to the left. You release the cursor to outlet and actions. Dialog appears with the outlet selection and the connection type. The name field specifies a variable name for the button, my button. Okay, and so the name field, you can give it a name. Okay, so let's call it my button with a capital B. Remember the camel casing or whatever? Do you remember that talk? Is it an outlet or an action? Down here is the type. It's a UIButton type automatically. And then the week. So let's just look at some of the options here. Click the connection button to finalize the creation of the outlet, generating a line of code that defines the outlet. So just put a name in there. Let's leave this as an outlet. Let's leave it as UIButton as a type, and then weak or strong, and we'll learn about that in a little bit. And then if you hit connect, you'll see I have my connection. I'm going to make this a little bigger here. Let me make this bigger here. So again, let's look at that. And the other thing to keep in mind is there's a little plus here. See that little plus when I roll my cursor over? See that little plus when I roll my cursor over that? Notice how it's calling it my button. Do you see the little plus right there? What is that plus doing? That's telling me it's connected to something that's on the screen. That's a good way to see what your code is connected to on the screen. Do you see that? See how it highlights it when I roll over? So look at those details, because that's, you know, once you have a lot of stuff in there, you're going to have a lot of stuff in there. And, you know, if you have a lot of stuff in there, you know, it's going to be whoosh. You're going to have a lot of stuff. This thing's called an IB outlet right here. This is just a way of telling it, hey, I can do something with it. Okay, the unique to interface builder, this keyword specifies a relationship between the variable and the storyboard. Without the IB outlet keyword, the circle doesn't display. Weak, this keyword describes the details about the relationship between the ViewController and my button. You'll learn about that later. Variable my button, this declares a variable called my button. Button UI. The type of property is the UI button. The button type within the UI kit framework exclamation point warns you that the program will crash if you try to access this property and the outlet isn't connected. More about this in the lesson. So what they're trying to say is you'll get an error message if it is not connected to a specific device, and you'll see that. That's a common one there. Now that you have access to the button and code, add the following line inside the view did load. My button set title. Set title. Where do we want to write that? So what they're trying to tell you here is you can write some code in here in the where it says view did load function here, and you can change the color of the button itself. Let's just try it. I'm going to type in my button, and then you'll notice it recognizes my button as I am putting it in there, and you'll get messages as you're going along. And then there's one that's called set title color, and then round bracket, and they want you to put red. Notice there's a dot in front of red, and then 4, and then normal, And you'll notice it also has a round bracket at the end automatically. You'll notice it wrote that all. So what is this doing? Well, this is going to set my button color to red, is what this line does. And that was from the book reading that this line changes the color of button title from blue to red. Build and run your application to see the change of the color. So again, this is, view did load. Okay, so here we're declaring it, right? This is an outlet. I can do something with it. My button. What can I do to it? Well, I can change the color of it to red. And so if we test it, we'll see if it worked. I do have error messages here. These ones. And so it'll open in the simulator. And the button is red. So through programming, I changed the color of the button. You can also rotate your simulator. And sometimes this crashes if you rotate it, so just be aware of that. Notice how it stayed in the center. That's under hardware, device. There is rotate. So try some of these. You got Siri, you got iTouch. This is a full working simulator. You can actually go and surf the internet. The simulator is a full working phone. Do you see that? The full working. So the simulator is a full working phone. So again, the simulator is the arrow in the upper left corner. Okay, we don't have to keep going all day today. Let me stop for today because I'm going to get tired.